All right, everybody, welcome back to Misery Point Radio. Thanks for joining me again today. I have a very special guest back with us, returning after almost 3 years with some brand new content. Kind of a whole bunch of stuff happening with him over the last couple years. So please welcome back Terry, not Jenkins, Paulson from Draemora. Thanks for joining me again, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on. It has been quite a while since we talked, so
Yeah.
I'm sure
Well,
we got plenty to talk about.
definitely plenty to talk about, and you've got a new single which just dropped here, which is apparently doing pretty well already. You guys have always just kind of had that immediate kind of since your inception. Really, your singles have always kind of taken off on the listens. But you've also got a little bit of kind of, I don't want to say a format switch, but a little bit of, I think, a refocus on what you're doing.
That's a
So
good word. I've never even used that, but that sounds more correct. It's
yeah, I
not
mean,
like anything's, we're not changing genres or something, but yeah.
yeah, and I find that, especially, after, all the BS with COVID and just kind of all the, I think people meeting people and projects starting out with one direction and moving into a different direction and just getting different people involved. Sometimes those of us that maybe start projects want to say, hey, listen, I appreciate everybody's contributions and I want this to be kind of democratic and I want everybody to feel appreciated and valued. But sometimes that initial core concept just kind of starts to grow lots of arms and legs. And before you know it, it's not what you set out to do. And so, I did see kind of a cool little explainer video that you had recently done saying, hey, listen, a lot of you guys were asking questions about what's going on with the band. So let's just kind of start there. Since the last time we talked, what's been going on and, what's happening now?
Since then, and I would say that's like 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
With that, we put out an EP first, and the reason that EP was released and put out in the very first place is because right away I stumbled and tripped onto an opportunity to do a tour with Head PE and Dropout Kings. And so then I was like, oh crap, I need to have something to show to the people that we are going to be playing for. So I have some way to capitalize on this opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And so I wasn't expecting that. I thought we were going to take a little more time, get more songs, do a full album, and all this kind of stuff. But then that got released. And kind of how I felt about it was like there was one good song on it. And I thought that was Guilt. I thought that out of the whole thing, that was the one that I liked. And it's the only one that was like even remotely finished. The rest of them, even the one that was chosen as the single, they sort of just were underdeveloped. They were just, in my opinion, still now, like if I went back, there's parts that would be removed, and it was kind of like that. So it was like really unsatisfying to release that material. So then the next thing that happened is I got another opportunity to do a similar thing, and then I don't know. I was just the guitar player at the time, and I was like the main songwriter and like kind of the manager and all that sort of stuff. But what was going on is I had a vocalist who had a very strong kind of deathcore ability, we'll
Yeah.
just say. Like that was what he had to offer that was good, that was really good. He really didn't have a lot of other things in the bag. And that being kind of what I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know which way the band was going to go. So I was like, you know what, let's lean into that. And so I started writing more for that. And also for, kind of the other musicians in the band. We talked about it and we are like, yeah, let's try to lean into that because I like that type of music. It wasn't contrived. It was like, I could do that too. Yeah. Hell yeah. I would love to play some songs that have breakdowns and cool, evil riffs and
Yeah.
stuff. So we wrote some stuff like that, and Death Rectangle came out, that whole album. Again, rushed, completely rushed. There's like half the album was underdeveloped, and it was just put out so we could like sell something on a tour.
Sure.
At the time, I like just was like feeding myself this like, it's okay, who cares, you know what I mean? After 2 times of doing that, it will not ever happen again. So I just can't I can't believe that like I would listen back to that like a year or two later and go like, God, if I just had another few months to sit with this, and come back to it, I would have changed so much and done so much differently, and the songs would have been better, in my opinion. Whether people would have thought they were better or not, I'm not really writing any of this stuff for the enjoyment of everyone else. And if people enjoy it, that's fantastic. But at the end of the day, like even with anything you do, it's creative. Like your radio station, you put a lot of work into these things. I mean, this is a part of your life. So if you really care about it, you have to like it. You have to like the way it is. You have to enjoy doing it, and you have to be, at the end of the day, because people are going to be mean whether it's good or not. You know what I mean? And
I do.
I know that from being a musician. You know what I mean? They're going to talk smack, okay? They're going to get out there, and people are going to crush you.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to stand by that thing and go, I like it, and I think it's fantastic, and I did the very best that I could do. If I can't do that, you're never going to hear a song ever again. So that is what's going on now. I wouldn't say there was any real focus to change anything other than that vocalist, things did not work out, and he left. There was a moment in time where we were like, are we going to find a new vocalist? And kind of me and the band talked, and they were like, why don't you just do it? You could, and I was like, okay. So I tried. We did a couple songs at practice, and we were like, okay, I guess this could work.
And you were doing cleans, right?
I was doing some stuff and backup, so it wasn't like I mean, the guys had already heard me do stuff.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like doing whole songs with such kind of contrary, rhythms.
Right.
It's like playing Holy Wars. I always wondered when I was a kid, like, how's he doing that? How's he playing Holy Wars and doing the vocals?
Yeah.
But yeah, or listen to a Death song and listen to Chuck do any of those songs and do the vocals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. So like some of these songs, like especially the one that just came out, there's a lot of more effort on my part to, first of all, never allow it to be something where I write a song and then make the lyrics easy, quote unquote, so that I don't have to be as stressed on stage. I just need to come at it from, okay, I wrote this as a guitar player, and I'm going to make it whatever it's going to be, difficult or not. Sometimes it's not difficult. It's just whatever the song needs. But I can't stop it from being difficult if it needs to be. And then on the other end, I can't go into writing lyrics and be like, okay, well, these parts are going to be hard against each other, and then like make it easier. It's just got to be whatever comes out. And then at the end, I have to learn it. And that's been the biggest thing. But in the end, there's still singing, just like there was before. There's still, harsh vocals, although they're not. I don't do the deathcore vocals. It's more of like a screamy kind of thing. I mean, I'm a child of like the early 2000s, really. So like, Shadows Fall, Soilwork was humongous influence on me. In Flames, even like Cradle of Filth and Dumu.
Yeah.
And those kinds of things from back in the day, and Slipknot in their early days. Those are the kind of screams that like still to this day, like Refused. Totally, dude.
I just found this. You just said that, and I don't want to derail your story, but I literally just found this at a record store here down the road from my house the other day, and I about shit my pants. $2, motherfucker. $2.
Yeah, totally. Dude, I found a whole gang of CDs the other day at Half Price Books for like $1 a piece that were like $20 with a DVD and stuff inside of it. But yeah, anyways, totally, man. And then, on the other end of that spectrum, I feel like I've had, like, some people consider their formative years, or like, most people do think it's like your 12 to 15-year-old person.
Sure.
But I feel like I've had like 3 or 4 of them, where I shed the old stuff, didn't care about it, and then was like obsessed with something again in my 20s and obsessed with something in my early 30s. And so I don't know how that works for me, but I'm going to go through it again probably. But I know that was like the band Sicketh was huge, blew my mind. It was in Gorod and bands that were like progressive, but in a really dark, when people think about progressive metal, I think we think about this like kind of power metal vibe,
right?
But really just off rhythms and really good musicians, almost like jazz in a way, where it's palatable. to some degree, even though it's too complicated for like a normie kind of person to enjoy.
Yeah.
These other bands were now bringing this dark, really brutal sounding concepts and notes and dissonance into the progressive world. And I credit Sickoth for, like, people think it's Periphery or Monuments. I think Sickoth was predated that.
Yeah.
And really was the first band, like that Bland Street Bloom. If anyone is listening to this, you don't know who I'm talking about. Came out in like 2006, 2007. There's some English dudes, and they just kill. The whole album is kill. It's super weird vocals, super dark. The guitar playing is incredible. The drumming is incredible. It's so good, and it's like the precursor to the age that we're in now, which is gent. But at the time, it wasn't. There was no word for it. You know what I mean? I mean, Meshuggah did, I guess, coin it by saying that's the sound our guitars make.
Yeah,
gent, right? But yeah, we weren't calling it that. I just was like, this is insane, whatever this is, this crazy new metal. But so anyways, that's what I'm trying to hit. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to I like to just let my influences come back out no matter what they are.
You know, and I think
nice and pretty.
It's oh man, so articulate. I think the reality is, though, as an artist, whether or not it's, musicians or writers or people that have those creative elements, most of us look back on the early stuff and just cringe, just like,
Yeah.
and we're never happy. Like you strive for a moment in time that reflects who you are, but then it's always who you are at that moment in time. So when you look at it from another moment in time, you've either grown into something else or you've regressed into something else.
Sure,
But
yeah,
I kind of
totally.
feel like it's never quite, what I want it to be. Now you went as far as to physically take material down because you felt strongly enough that really didn't represent who you were.
Sure. And I think we might put that stuff back up eventually because it will be fun to put it back up. But at the moment, I don't see Spotify as anything else than a promotional tool for me.
Yeah.
I don't see it as anything. I got like 40,000 streams one year. I got a check for $5. So just put that in perspective. If I sold one CD, I made more money. So I'm not dogging on Spotify. It's excellent for a lot of things. And I think promotion is one of the things that it is absolutely fantastic for. Makes it so that everyone can listen to your music and you can focus that by kind of putting up what you think is the most important thing. I don't have a record label. I am, in my band, we talk about this and decide what we're going to do. We all talked about that for a few months. And then we were like, yeah, let's just do it. Let's get that out of there so that when someone listens to Sick Sad World, they don't go back and listen to something that's so far off of what a representation we'd like them to hear. And then, for a while, as we're kind of gaining speed on the new material, we'll give them kind of a bed to, I think the plan is to release 9 or 10 songs.
Okay.
And that's the name of the album is going to be Sick Sad World. So every one of them have the same album cover. That stuff's all done. And a lot of these songs are done. There's a few scragglers that need to be completed, but we're going to release them single by single by single by single. They all belong together. We could just release an album and whatever, but I think that's just not a very smart thing to do in this time, because you just need content anyways. You might as well use the stuff you're working on, and having a song to release every, month or something is a smart way to do that.
I think it's a smart way to do it in my daily conversations that I have with artists. That really is not even just a personal preference anymore. That really is kind of where the industry has landed. And in the age of everybody now being a digital content creator, the best way to kind of keep your engagement going is to have something new to show somebody on a perpetual basis. Something always has to be coming out. And so releasing entire albums, as much as I love entire albums and I'm still a whore for physical format, a lot of times, you got your release window and then the artists kind of just disappear into the shadows for a while until 2 or 3 years down the road maybe something happens, or in some cases 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road.
Totally, dude. That just totally happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and you personally in Draemora, you guys really have kind of just been good about releasing singles and content and kind of sporadic things. So I think this is pretty, at the risk of sounding corporate, it's pretty on brand for what you've been doing. But I definitely, so listening to Sick Sad World, let's just talk about this then.
Sure.
So there's definitely, if I go back and listening to, Awaken, for instance, which clearly is one of those pieces of work that right now you're kind of moving away from. There is a definite.
There might be, just to stop. We might be taking a song or two off of that.
Because I really like that. Ahead. I do really like that EP.
We're gonna re-record it so it's a little bit more the way it's supposed to be, I think. But go ahead.
There are some good songs on there, but I listen to Sick Sad World and I look at the level of, I hate to use the word polish because sometimes that turns people off, but it's like, it's got like a very tight percussive feel to it. And, rhythmically it's tight, down-tuned awesomeness, of course. But it's got a different vibe to it. It feels really, really thought out and kind of a longer song, I think, than what your average Draemora song would be. A fantastic solo leading into just a really awesome clean break that I like a lot. So there's kind of a lot of paradigm shifting going on, with that particular song. And if that's indicative of the direction, then I think that's amazing, because I immediately upon hearing that was like, oh, this is next level for you guys.
Wow, that's really cool to hear. Yeah, I mean, I've been sitting on that song in one form or another because it's been in a computer getting changed around for 2 years. Something. It was going to end up on Death Rectangle in 2021, and I was like, no. Again, my experience was I messed up by rushing these, so I'm going to sit on these. And I'm going to pull this up in a few months and listen to it again and see where it takes me. And I think some people would argue that is a very poor way to do things because you're spending too much time on a product and you're going to ruin it or something like that. But it's not like I'm sitting there every day for 2 months. It's like I think sometimes you just need to come back with the ears of a listener, in my opinion, and go, I'm too deep in this right now. I'm spending too much time on granular, stupid stuff. I need to come back fresh and give this thing what it deserves, which is my full creative attention and my energy, my excited energy to create something. Not, oh, this part needs another thing in it and this needs another. Like, as soon as I start doing that kind of stuff, I kind of just go, okay, I need to do something else, and I'll just pull up another song or something. But yeah, that song basically is supposed to showcase everything that we want to do. It's got all the stuff that, I think, if someone heard Death Rectangle, the song, for example, and you liked that song, okay? If I showed you another song that had clean vocals and a nice guitar solo with minor pentatonic arpeggios and things like that in there, you might go, what the fuck is this? This sounds nothing like that. And that's why I just don't, maybe someday I'll make a whole band that's just deathcore so I can get it out somewhere. But I don't think it's fair to the people who like that or like Sick Sad World to just confuse the crap out of them by giving like such juxtaposition. You know what I mean? So I wanted to put everything that I think Draemora could do, sonically right now in that. Give it a very nice, clean, progressive, clean part. Give it some really good, like that 90s kind of vibe in some of the choruses and some of the things with the singing, and give it those melodies that remind me a lot of like 1996. When I was a kid, it's just like a lot of that stuff's in there. And
yeah,
like the ending, I always wanted to do like a Tom Morello type thing, and I had all these riffs, but I was like, how could I fit that into this death metal stuff? You know what I mean? But I found a way, I think, and I when I listen to it, that part puts a smile on my face. Still, it's my song, and I should hate it, but for the amount of times I've heard it. But if I ever hear it and it's on, and I hear that last part come on, where it's like woo, and like the big part comes, I go, it fits. It's like great. It's a great ending. So I just was like, I want to be as creative as I can in this, and a lot of the other songs, there's going to be more straightforward songs on there. There might be some songs that are a little weirder, but there's no constraints anymore. It's not like this is going to be the hit, so it can't have a solo. This is going to be this is going to be the progressive song, so it can't have a chorus. It's just whatever happens. And like you noticed, probably, song's a lot longer.
Yeah.
If I really cared about people listening to it, some pop radio station playing it, and we were in that era or
You'd
something,
have to cut it in half.
to chop like a minute and a half or
Yeah.
2 minutes off that and like focus on it. But I'm not ever going to do that again, because I think that's unfair. I also think that it's insulting to the people who are listening to our music, you and I, and everyone who likes this music, to think that they are stupid and not intelligent and they don't have an attention span. That is not true about everybody. And just because there's people on the internet who don't have a attention span, and that's the people that everyone wants to talk about, Mike, they said that about my generation, about Beavis and Butthead. They said, these kids are stupid. Their attention span is getting lower. And there I was listening to 2112, my dad's records. I loved it. Listening to Tool. And not ever skipping a song, listening to the very end. And we had, in my generation, we had secret songs where like sometimes you would leave it on for 7 minutes and a song would come on the end of the CD. But yeah, our attention spans in my friend group was not short. We loved long songs. We loved when the song went to 8 minutes and had a long intro and a big long guitar solo and a theme and stuff. So I don't think that that's true. I'm sure there is always going to be a mix of humans out there, and some of them will have short attention spans and they won't like my music. But I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are like me, and they want stuff that is genuine, for one, and doesn't feel contrived and feels like an expression so they can connect with it, but also something that gives them something to bite onto. It's got a lot in there,
Yeah.
And that's what I would like to think that some of this content is going to be. There's also the other side of me that likes a 3-minute song. So, I mean, I like pop music. I mean, I like radio music just as much as I like, really heavy, brutal music. And
Yeah.
maybe I think that's pretty normal. Most of us have an eclectic taste. So there's going to be something like that in there. Then there's going to be something like 6 Hour Worlds. So hopefully there's a mix and hopefully people like that.
I'm a huge fan of, the long compositions, and, I have this conversation a lot with people, but for instance, And Justice for All is an album that people still love to shit on, but it happens to actually be my favorite Metallica album, because it's so intricate and so goddamn technical, but the songs are long and you do have to pay attention to them. But I would go listen to that and then immediately turn around and listen to like Rain and Blood, where all the songs are, 2.5, 3 minutes, and you get two amazing, heavy albums that are iconic with completely different takes on what it means to be thrash or what it means to be metal. And that just, to me, perfectly illustrates that you can have multiple ideas within the same framework and still elicit different emotions and different kind of responses from people. And so I think kind of what you're doing right now, from what little I've heard of your current new stuff, it's definitely taking a lot of those technical pieces that you have really kind of grown into, I think, and you're finding better ways to put them in there without them being so like, I don't know, showboaty, like a woohoo, look at me now, I can tap on the fingerboard, or the musical wankery, I call it, which is great in some cases, and other people just don't do it right, and then you just kind of like, whatever. But like, for you, starting out just like with a really cool kind of a tapping intro, and then boom, hitting into a heavy rhythm right off the top, that's a perfect use of that kind of a technique, because it says, I've got some chops I can show off, but I'm not trying to slap you in the face with it.
Yeah, well, that's very nice to say. I mean, I didn't really think about it that way, but it's funny because I just didn't want to start. I didn't want it to start with like, I don't know. The first idea that was tossed around was that we're going to have this like, no offense to anybody who does this, okay? Some of these songs slap, and I listen to them, okay? But a filtered intro where it's got the riff going ba-ba-dap and ba-ba-dap, but it's like, it starts off in like the telephone, and then like, that was kind of an idea.
Yeah, the EQ sweep.
Or to have like a low EQ and then bring it in, just play the riff. And I was like, that's all lame. I'm so sick of doing stuff like that. I was like, you know what? Let's just make it abrupt and like shock the people right
Yeah.
off the bat with this dissonant atonal thing because you know what I mean? Like I just don't know of a better way for like when we play it live, people go like I can see people going like, "What was that? That noise that was just made?" And I think that's perfect because now I got your attention. Now we're going to play a kind of, and that polyrhythm that's in that song for that riff is very sneakily something that I think that anybody, even if you didn't know how to count rhythms or anything, you are not going to be thrown off by that. And that was a huge goal of mine is to put in things that are extremely complicated to me, but it not translate that way to the people who are listening to it because I don't think that that's advantageous to have something that people cannot connect with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't like it when people do that. When I see local bands that are trying to be Meshuggah, but they can't quite do that thing, like Meshuggah, they're the masters of that thing. And really, the first band I ever heard do something that I could not understand, but like it didn't bother me. I was like, well, I don't care. It's still good. I can still bob my head to this, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't understand what's going on. And that's trying to tap into that a little bit too. So
Yeah, and so you mentioned that you're kind of a product of like the 2000s and late 90s. So I'm just a little going back a little bit earlier than that. So I'm kind of more of a musical product of like the late 80s, early 90s. That's kind of like my sweet spot. Also during that time frame, so you had the extreme metal was kind of really birthing and then evolving into different directions. There was also the age of like the GIT guys, the Musicians Institute guys, who were all about just like flash and just crazy stuff, and it's like and I love a lot of that stuff too, but the technical ability thing where it's just so goddamn complicated, and you're like, dude, just write a song I can sing to. Just give me something I can hum along to. It's great that you can do all that stuff. I'm not going to remember it in 5 minutes, except for the fact that goddamn that guy played something super fast. But I can't reproduce it in my head. I just have to listen to it and listen to it and listen to it to appreciate it. But I can't go to my friend Joe and say, dude, how about that part where he went
sure, right,
like,
yeah.
oh man, that's great, that kind of stuff. I do like it, but now I like it when it's done like in like a really small quick phrase as kind of an accent as opposed to the main body of a song that's playing at 300 fucking bpms and they're shredding so fast that
Sure.
you can't even make one phrase to the next. It's like there's no riffs, it's all solos. And like
Hmm.
I need some diversity in my music to kind of break up the monotony.
Yeah,
And
I feel that really hard. And yeah, to kind of touch back on that. So when I was 7 years old, my dad was into not like extreme metal, but he was into like heavier stuff. And I remember him he was into Helmet. I'm sure you know who that
yeah.
is. And that was one of the first bands where I ever heard someone who I thought could sing so beautifully. I mean, you think what you want about Page Hamilton, but I thought when he could when he would sing, it would be so beautiful, and he would play these really catchy things, and you'd be so into it, and I'd be like, God, this is why aren't they famous? And then you'd figure out why, because like some way into the song, he would like almost intentionally disrupt all of the beauty with these like really terrible sounding things on purpose, almost as if to be like, I don't want this to be famous,
Yeah.
and like I know I could be or something, you know what I mean? And they still prevailed even through that. And that album Meantime is probably the only album of theirs that where they don't do a bunch of weird stuff, like Strap It On before that, and then Betty kind of after Meantime. Those are really crazy albums that have extremely catchy things in them. But that early 90s stuff, I mean, is gold. All of it to me, like, and I still listen to, I mean, a lot of people don't think it's the greatest album. I love Countdown to Extinction.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of my favorite eras of Marty Friedman. I still
Speaking of
play those
GIT
solos.
guys.
So, but yeah, he's an example of, though, of someone who, especially in that era and for his age,
Yeah.
was able to play something that I could sing.
Yeah.
I mean, I could sing those solos, man. Like they were so good and they were so catchy, and it was like another little song inside of a song,
Yeah.
like an ornament on a tree. Instead of being like this, I'm just gonna play a bunch of notes. It was melodic. It had
Mm.
like really good sounds to it, and he did lots of different techniques that if you were a guitar player, you'd be like, that guy's incredible. If
Yeah.
you weren't a guitar player, you'd be like, that was a cool sounding solo. And it just was, it's magical. And that was a lot of influence on me when I was just starting to play the guitar. Was like, that's what you should do. Dimebag Darrell was fantastic at it too. Just like I said, making another little thing inside of a thing that was just as catchy as the song, but it was a solo. Like everyone can hum that solo to walk, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially that last part. It's like it's like it's so catchy, and that song is just a couple notes, and it's so catchy.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are perfect. Those times where it was really starting to like where extreme music was starting. People who weren't extreme music fans were starting to go like, I guess this could be on the radio.
Yeah.
This stuff was screaming and heavy guitars. It was like making a big shift. And I mean, kids now really don't understand that if you were a screamer and if there was someone screaming in your band, you weren't going to ever be on the radio. You just basically, in everyone's opinion, you would just shot yourself in the foot. You know what I mean? Why don't you sing? I heard it a million
Man,
times.
so many times I heard that when I was playing in death metal bands in the 90s.
Dude. But yeah, now kids are like, yeah, that scream was cool. This one's a little different. I kind of like this. And they're like connoisseurs of these like different screams, you know what I mean? Which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
Because I think it's stupid that it was so rejected when I was a kid. But yeah, it's like people who paved the way, which no one likes Phil Anselmo anymore, but he kind of paved the way in a lot of ways for everyone else. He kind of kicked that door down for everyone else to get a chance to be a screamer in a popular band.
Yeah.
And now it's the kind of stuff's on the radio.
And it's not only is it on the radio, it's fairly prevalent. It's there a lot.
Popular.
Yeah.
And people expect it to happen. So
yeah. Pantera was one of those bands that I kind of loved to hate and hated to love.
Totally.
And that early stuff I really liked, that fucking chuggy, groovy fucking, just so much awesome backbeat. And, Phil's voice, I think, is one of the most imitated voices out there in the world right now. And probably even for some people unintentionally who don't even really know who he is. A lot of the newer people don't really know who he is. It blows my mind. But yeah, that voice and that guitar is just so iconic. And I remember playing in a cover band and doing Pantera songs, and like, this is just, and all the other stuff we did, the Pantera stuff always got people moving. And there's just something about their energy and the way they composed and the way that it was just so tight, whether or not it was like a really open chord kind of a riff or just like a nice fucking muted staccato, kind of a thing. They nailed it every time.
Yeah, I think it's really, again, a lot of influence on the whole generation. And then you touched on something that I've always thought was interesting that kids reject, and even some people in bands I've been in that are just a little bit younger than me, how they really reject it. They almost are like, you're fucking crazy for saying this. But when I hear riffs now, and I have the benefit of hearing riffs before and after the extreme popularity of Dimebag Darrell, and everyone really taking it and copying it, because like I think that happened right after like Great Southern Trendkill. That's when I really started to notice that like metal bands were starting to do these almost copycat Dimebag things and copycat Phil and Selmo things, and it was like your ears would perk up when other bands would do it, and you just be like, what, dude, that's just a ripoff. You're like a dollar store Dimebag Darrell, and there was lots of people like myself included that noticed that. Now that that's passed, we're into like the third wave of people who are copying the people that copied a person, in my opinion. So like, and they don't even know they're doing it. They are crediting a thing that copied the thing 2 times ago. So there's no way they could know that.
Right.
So I don't talk about it ever again. Look up any interview. I've never talked about this, but you touched on it. So it's just something that I've
it's
always
fair
thought
game
was
now.
It is. It's interesting to me. It's not something I've ever thought was bad. I think it's fantastic that when I turn on YouTube and there's a popular band, I can hear a Dimebag riff almost every time, or a solo that does something that he did or a riff that's like, that's a Dimebag riff, or like it's just that way. And someone said that to me about that solo in Six Sad World, and I didn't even put that together. Like, that sounds a lot like Pantera. And I was like, wow, I didn't really think about it in that way, because I don't think Dimebag would ever do a run of minor seven arpeggios like that, or sweep pick, or do anything like the techniques I do. But it must be in there. It must just be in there. And when I just hear a couple things, and maybe I'm regurgitating little pieces myself. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's interesting that things can transcend without even the generations in front of them knowing that. Like, Phil Anselmo and Dimebag and Marty, and for sure, like Metallica's still famous, and they pretty much are, returning to their first form, in my opinion.
Yeah.
With just a much better sound. But yeah, there was a time when people were definitely copying James too, and I credit a lot of James Hetfield to giving me an example for palm muting.
Yeah.
And songwriting. And probably one of the greatest frontmen of all time. Fight me about that, but just there's a reason why they're so famous. His personality is infectious. In fact, all the people in that band are like that.
And it kind of reminds me of another thing that I have been criticized myself for saying, but and I don't mean it to be derogatory, but at some point, everything is derivative of something else, subconsciously or directly. But you hear something, it could be something you heard 10 years ago, and then one day you fall asleep, and then you wake up, and you got a melody in your head, and you don't remember where it's from, and you morph it into something else. So I always hesitate to say things like, well, I think you stole this from so-and-so, but, I'd be like, sometimes I'll say things like, oh, I hear bits and pieces of this in your song, or I hear little things like this.
Passive aggression. No.
Something like that, yeah. Because we all hate the labels, we all hate to say like, oh, well, if you had to compare yourself to one band, who would it be? Like, totally. Oh, Terry, you must really love the Deftones, So
it's whatever, though. I mean, you're right. It is, everything becomes derivative of everything. And Monet painted beautiful paintings, but he was inspired by somebody.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? It's just,
by me.
It's the way it is. Yeah, sure. You know what I mean? But it's just the way it is. Like, no matter what you're going to do, we're humans. We take in information, and then we scramble that information up, hopefully, and we took a little spin on it, and we spit it back out. As long as you're trying to be genuine about that, I think as long as it's more of like an homage, and it's like, this sounds like that, then I think it's fantastic. I think it's really, really cool. Tim Henson, to me, that guy who's in Polyphia, we all know, he is a fantastic guitar player. However, that style of music is not new. I mean, it's very derivative of a lot of things that were like in the late 80s, to be totally clear. And it's kind of revisiting its popularity. It's having a moment again. And I think for good reason. I love guitar-driven music. And anytime the guitar-driven music like that gets popular, it warms my heart, to be totally honest. Because every time I think it's going to go away, like when I was a kid, Joe Satriani was a star.
Yeah, for sure.
People who didn't, normal people had a Joe Satriani CD in their car.
Yeah, people that weren't guitarists. People just
they would have Surfing with the Alien or Flying in a Blue Dream or something, and you'd be like, God, this is so cool that this guy who isn't even... I mean, there was a few songs he sung on, but those are not the ones we know him for. But these people know his guitar playing, and they know who he is, and such a bright personality of that guy and image. I mean, you can just think in your head, and you know what he looks like, everything about Joe. Same with Steve Vai. When in the 90s, they were stars, dude. They were absolute stars, and that's inspiring still. And then it kind of died. But then people will come and bring it back up. And so I think there was a lot of talk for a while where, who's going to be the next guitar hero?
Yeah.
Then this guy shows up. He's handsome. He's charismatic. Everyone likes him. He looks cool. He's got a different take on an old style of music. He's playing fantastic guitar music. It's back. You know what I mean? So now I see all over the internet people imitating him. So it's just, everything is derivative of everything. And it's the way things are. It's just whatever inspires a generation of people, you'll probably see another thing that's like it come out at the other side. And we're just products of that, you and me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's just the way it is.
I
So yeah, like I guess what I'm saying is I'm not dogging on anybody. Don't get a take like that. I think it's great. I just do your thing, man.
Yeah, I just recently last week got to go and see two of my influential bands that influenced me, which was Atheist and Cynic, and those guys were really kind of often credited with helping to spearhead progressive metal movements, and so to go back and hear those songs by the artists who did it back in the day, it really kind of gives you a sense of nostalgia because you can look at where things are now and then you can now be like, oh god, this is how it was 30 years ago. Like this shit's 30 plus years old.
Right.
And Atheist, as a prime example, with Kelly Schaefer, who's basically the sole original member, but he's surrounded himself with more or less, Berkeley kids, MI kids, and they're playing these songs, in his words, better than I could have ever played them myself. But they still have the exact as they were played on the album, maybe just not quite as quantized and stuff like that. It's all still got a very live feel to it. So he's just like, man, just from his perspective, playing 30-plus-year-old songs with people from a different generation has given him the best of both worlds, and I just think that's amazing. And like Cynic, and seeing Paul Masvidal play these songs, who obviously he went on to play with Death and several other amazing bands, but it's just man, those songs brought me back. And then so now I'm here and I'm hearing all the new stuff, but I keep my brain just like, that reminds me of the stuff from 30 years ago. And it's not the same, it's not being copied or pasted or anything like that, but you hear those things and your ear is drawn to what you knew when you were first getting going, musically or artistically. And I find it funny how, as you said, it just kind of starts to circle back a little bit.
Yeah, I think we do that too. And I think, it's funny that anybody would even, and we talked about something, I think, before the interview started that really ties into this. And that is that pretty much we don't understand how much youth is, and I've heard Alex Skolnick said this, and I thought it was like, God, he must have got it from somewhere. I don't know where he got it from, but youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that that's so prominent in my mind is because the lack of wisdom does a few really cool things. First of all, it makes you think that you're coming up with brand new things. And so I think that exuded self-confidence of like, I've come up with a brand new thing, everybody, listen to it. Really, it blocks out anybody even trying to find the thing that was derivative of.
Yeah.
But secondly, some of the negatives are, you don't understand that you need to respect the things that came before it. And people are a lot better about it these days than when I was a kid, but man, it's still there. But yeah, even people who make clothing, they know, okay, well, the next thing that's going to happen is 2005 is going to come back. So we need to get that stuff ready so that we can sell this to the kids, because that's what's going to be in style.
Yeah.
And then everything will come back like that. The music, the jewelry. I mean, there's people wearing those George Michael earrings.
What the fuck is that all about?
I don't know. George Michael is handsome. Obviously a very important person.
Yeah.
Whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not a fan of George Michael's music or anything. I probably wouldn't even have known who he was if it wasn't for Limp Bizkit. But for sure, like, that style, the 5 o'clock shadow that's like painted on, the dangly earring, the wire rim gold glasses that like Boys to Men and stuff wore when I was a kid. That stuff's all back. So, we're moving forward. And what's the next thing? It's got to be the 2000s. As much as you probably, if you're younger and listen to this, want to reject that, that's the way things go. Pretty soon you are going to be like a meme of the world, and your generation is going to get regurgitated back out in some weird fashion. Like, these people think they know what people looked like, and it's close, but it's like a little weirder, bizarre kind of take on the 90s to me. But it's whatever. It's just the music is the same thing, art's the same, and all the young generations that come after us, like I said, they're learning from the things that are before them, and hopefully that never stops, because it kind of helps keep everything alive in a way. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It keeps the foundation continually coming back up to the top in a way. It's kind of strange, you know.
Yeah. You know who else rocked the 5 o'clock shadow and the pretty boy look, but with a little bit more of a rock and metal edge to it?
Who?
Kip Winger
Oh my God.
had that
Yeah. He
kind of
also sung that
rugged.
song about having sex with 17-year-old
That's
girls.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, when I was a kid, I had a tape that had a mixtape that was like one of my uncles or something like that. A ton of this glam metal, and I thought Kip Winger was a fantastic guitar player. In fact, let's just say he is a fantastic musician all around.
Yeah.
That song, nobody talks about that. I am super surprised that that song is not something that people are talking about more because it's just so blatant. It's like,
I
yeah, you're not legal, and I'm gonna smash on this.
Yeah,
You
and
know what I
I
mean?
think the only thing that kept that from getting to that level you're talking about is he, I think, came out and did an interview with some Damage Control, and he said, "Yeah, but when I wrote that song, I was only 18, and it didn't get released for
Was he
years."
though?
I don't know. I don't know what's true and what's not. I'm guessing that that's
Your
probably not
daddy
entirely
says
true
she's
either.
too young, but she's old enough for me.
Right?
And an 18-year-old is saying that?
Yeah. That's
That
what
doesn't sound like 18-year-old rhetoric to me.
that's what
About a
he's saying.
17-year-old. I know.
Yeah.
I got you. We have to take what he's saying, you know, because I don't know, but definitely the lyrics are creeped out for sure. And you know,
There's
I
so
don't
many
like,
songs out there you can't even.
Ugh.
You're like, oh man, I can't. This is how. And you know, Steven Tyler. I know we're going down a rabbit hole, guys, but you're on
No,
Misery Point
totally.
Radio. This is what we do. Steven Tyler recently came out with a book where he fully acknowledged that he more or less just groomed this girl. And she was on like, I don't remember the number, like 14, 15, 16, something like that. And he put this in his own fucking book, you know, and I'm like,
Totally.
dude,
Yeah.
you're crazy. You are, and Steven Tyler is crazy. I mean, he's fucking off of his rocker. But I'm
I'm
like,
sure he's got a lot of brain damage from the late
oh
70s,
man, you know
80s,
he
you know what I
does.
mean? For sure, yeah.
Yeah, the industry is rife with improprieties. That is definitely the truth. Needless to say, of course, we won't hear that in any of Draemora's music anytime soon.
I'm not gonna write songs about sex pretty much ever because I don't find myself to be a very sexual human being.
You are a sexy beast.
No, thank you. Well, you know, I don't feel that way. And I think if I was going to write a song like that, it would be so shrouded in metaphor that there's just no way you could figure it out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
you would
Like,
have to
I
interpret
wouldn't
it.
straight up just come out and go, this chick was 16 and I was 21. You know what I mean? Like, it would never happen. I just always thought that was like, even as a kid, I was like, what is this, dude? Like, you just straight up like, yo, I'm doing this and there's nothing y'all can do. Or I already did this. Here's a guitar riff. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just so in your face, you know? But yeah, totally. I think,
Those-
honestly, Dave Lee Roth also, I was just watching this kind of not homemade, it was well done, but it definitely wasn't like a big company making it. It was a fan, and he made a long documentary about Van Halen, and he got lots of good interviews in there. And one of them is with Dave Lee Roth's chosen kind of security. And if you might know, and I heard about even from my parents, that, you know, Dave Lee Roth would have this dude, the big dude, go and pick a few women out of the crowd and have them come backstage so he could have sex with them. And he usually would ask that they were underage. He didn't want any old chicks.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Because they probably had herpes, according to him. Anyways, so young chicks don't have herpes, I guess, according to
Not
Lee Roth.
yet.
But yeah, so so here's an even more interesting story. My mother, and she won't care because she tells this story to everyone. She's so proud of it. Okay.
Nervous
mother was
anticipation right here, folks.
My mother and my Aunt Carol, rest her soul, and I guess one of her other sisters, my mom had a bunch of family members, 8 brothers and sisters. Okay, so they go out to the concert, and she's the littlest one. She's like 15, 16, right? And she goes to the concert, and my mom's very beautiful. She gets picked out of the crowd to go backstage with Van Halen at the Van Halen concert. And she goes back there, and, you know, she's like standing next to Eddie Van Halen, and Eddie doesn't give a shit about any girls. He's just like still got his guitar on, she says. He's like tapping into this little pig nose amp, smoking cigarettes. He runs out of cigarettes. He talks to my mom, goes, "Hey, do you got a cigarette?" My mom hands him, you know, a cigarette, and she's just like nervous and, you know, whatever. And she kind of lets the story go dark after that, but I like to think that probably something happened. You know what I mean? I know my Aunt Carol says she was freaking out and they don't know what happened. But the joke is that David Lee Roth is my dad because I don't look anything like my dad. You know what I mean? But yeah, because, I came out shortly after that.
Okay.
About a year after. Nobody really knows. Okay. But yeah, that's definitely a thing. My mom was underage. And so that's just right in my own family, bro. You know what I mean? Like,
Man.
that's stuff that happened then, that if that happened for 1 second now, it would just be all over the internet.
Oh yeah,
you
it'd be
know?
blasted
like that dude,
everywhere.
who was the guy from Panic on the Blood on the Dance Floor, I think, who was like grooming like 14-year-old girls, and
Oh
like
man.
it was like many of them. And their band was getting like famous, I guess. I don't really know a single song from the band, but they were getting popular. He ruined it. And then I think that CJ guy from Lorna Shore, that was a blessing to them, I guess, because he got in trouble for similar sexual things. And then he's out of the band. The band gets that Will Ramos guy, and then they blow up.
And they blow up, yeah.
Yeah. So, goodbye, CJ. But you know what I'm saying? Like, those kind of things would not happen now, because when they do happen, it doesn't take long for them to get out,
No, not in the age of the internet where instantaneous. I mean,
and the other flip side of that, bro, that I think is terrible is that one of my favorite bands, Decapitated, they went to Spokane, and these two girls had them on trial for rape.
Yeah.
Where they had these elaborate stories, and it turned out
to
true.
be BS. Yeah.
It did, but everyone around me was like, "Oh, they're fucking rapists," and they would just say stuff that was terrible, like all Polish men are chauvinistic,
right,
macho rapists. They would do that. I'm like, what? Do you know anything about these guys? They're sweet people. They're very nice. I was like, everyone who's met them says they're fantastic people. I don't think that that's true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But the damage control that now they have to do for the rest of their lives, even though, it's been put out there, how many people know that it's been put out there that it's
care.
not true? Yeah.
They didn't care about that part, bro.
Oh, man.
So, yeah. But, yeah, Kip Winger, he's just still chilling, probably collecting money off of that song. Good for you, Kip.
Good for you, Kip. Yeah.
You,
so, yeah, anyways, moving on from that. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's funny.
I don't even remember how we got to that point. What happened?
That was me making bad jokes.
Good jokes.
Good jokes, yes.
Good jokes.
And
Those
so
are the kind of jokes we like.
These are the kind of jokes that drain my battery that I better plug in real quick. There we go. Awesome. So anyway, getting back home, if we're going to make a Draemora reference there, right? That was a ha. So with your new stuff, you've illustrated, you've got a plan, you're going to release some singles, you've got enough for an album. Do you have an official, are you going to release on a schedule? Is there anything official, or is it just like whenever the fancy strikes you and the streams kind of start to slow down, then you're going to just hit it up on another one?
I think we're just going to play it by ear. And I think the reason for that is because schedules don't really work anymore. You have to look at what's going on and go, okay, this is still doing really well. Maybe instead of releasing another song, we should capitalize on it by putting out a music video now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's different avenues you could take depending on what happens. And I think that's probably the smarter way to spend your money and time. And again, in a world where unfortunately everything we do is called content instead of art.
I know, right?
I'll take it, whatever. But again, I'm saying, I'm thankful that there's just I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's not really hard to explain. It's easy to understand if you just know one thing. When I first started doing this, and probably when you first started doing stuff, it wasn't too dissimilar. There was no internet, man. So it was just like you had to tell everyone to their face, or get pieces of paper and put them everywhere,
and staple them on every goddamn phone pole.
Or try to go to the local college radio and give them your tape, or you know what I mean. Like there was different avenues to do it, but it was so much harder to do anything, and forget planning singles and stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you got signed, guess who got to decide that? The record.
The label did, yeah.
Yeah, and they basically gave you a huge loan, and then you just owed money.
And then you bent over for the rest of your life.
Totally, right? And even if it didn't do good, that's your fault. So now we have all that control. So I'm thankful for that. I love the future for that. I'm glad that I'm getting to make music in this generation, because now I know that at least my art gets a chance to get to some people that will like it because I get to focus the advertising. I get to talk to people on a much broader scale that would I'd never have conversations with some of these people or get the chance to meet them or anything. But since I can get on the internet and it's going to get shown to a couple thousand people probably at a time, some people are going to go, oh, I like this. You know,
Yeah.
it probably would have never met me before, anything like that. So I think it's cool. And I think it's advantageous to release it that way and play by ear. So yeah, we got a full album. I think it's going to be cool. I don't know all the content that will be surrounding it. I don't know all the people that will be helping with it, but I'm trying to kind of get back out, do more of this kind of stuff where I'm connecting with the scene and the people like you that care about this stuff because I'm the same way. I care about the scene.
Yeah.
And just get the community. I feel like you were saying in the beginning, like there's something happening here and I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel like the community's coming back. And since I feel that, I feel like it's the best thing to do to, even if it drains me a little bit, which that feeling, to just do it anyways. And because I appreciate that people are making an effort again, it seems like, to create a space for a community.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I want to be a part of that, and that's what I do this for anyways.
Yeah.
I want to be a part of the artistic community that surrounds me, and I want us all to connect with each other and make cool art, and keep this going and keep the scene alive so that people who want to step in and take a swing and show us what they got have a place to do that isn't just, 2 clubs. I see more clubs popping up around here and I see more places to play and more places to advertise. So I'm excited about, the next 10 years of our local scene. And I say that between, Tacoma, Seattle, Puyallup,
and you're
Olympia.
you're up in the Everett area still, right?
I'm in what we consider probably the north.
Yeah.
Not the north. Bellingham would be as far as you could play a show in Washington. So but yeah, definitely, man. I think it's going to be cool, and hopefully with this stuff that's coming out, people want to play shows with me.
Yeah.
It seems like I'm getting invited to play them.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that because you are getting back into the show circuit. I've seen some cool posts and things, and I have yet to have the opportunity to get out and see you play. But when you're playing these shows, then what material are you playing?
So we have switched into playing only new stuff. So a lot of it nobody even knows, but
okay.
there's reasoning for that. And
sure.
Most of that is that, so the 2 songs that we do play live that you can see are going to be Last Words, that single that's up there,
right?
And Sick Sad World, that is up there. There's going to be another song here in a second that comes out, and the rest of the songs, just like with Sick Sad World, before we finalize the mix, before we finalize the arrangement, another really cool thing is we can play it in front of people and see if anybody even connects with it.
Gauge
the
response.
Sad World, yeah. And, like DJs and stuff have been doing this for a million years. I say a million, last 30 years. They take something to the club and they try it on people.
Yeah,
see
for
if
sure.
People connect with it there, and then they go, oh, well, that didn't hit like I thought it would. I'm going to revise it and bring it back. And then when they finally release it, it's like the final form, the thing that works. And I was able to do that with Sick Sad World. I've been able to do that with other things, and I'm revising them a little bit here and there because, again, this isn't a computer. I mean, it's very easy for me to go through and go, okay, well, this part killed the mood. What can I do to make this fun for me the whole way through? Because if everyone's not having fun, I'm not having fun either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm trying to make a compromise there. It's for me. It's for me to have fun, but if I'm playing it in front of people and it really just, that part of the song obviously didn't work, or we play it together live and we're continually having issues with playing it, or we think the vibe changes, because it's one thing to listen to it on a CD.
Yeah.
Or I say CD because I'm old, but it's one thing to listen to it, in its recorded form. It's another thing to play it with your homies on stage and go, hey, this didn't feel the way it did on the album when it's in real life. What is different between these 2 things? How can we bridge that gap? And so that's what we're doing with some of that stuff. But yeah, it's new stuff. If you come out, you'll hear some of it, and it might not be the way that it's going to end up on the album. So maybe that's cool. I don't know, but definitely, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So enough material though that you can play comfortably full sets and try what works and revise that doesn't. So that's
I'd say we're really, really happy with the set the way it is right now. It's pretty solid.
yeah.
This is. I think we're going to start adding the last three songs of the album to the set when we get a chance. Most bands only get about 25, 30 minutes set.
Yeah, for sure.
That's pretty normal. So, but if you get a longer time than that, it's nice to have some stuff prepared. So we're getting ready to maybe do another showcase show like we did in March. And I don't know where I'll be doing that at, but we will be probably doing that sometime in the winter. So hopefully we'll have like 45 to an hour of music. And then when we do our showcase, we can headline it and we'll have all that music. And hopefully we'll have a few more singles out too. So there's more stuff out there for people to check out.
Yeah. And the guys that you got playing with you, are you currently playing as a three-piece or?
We are playing as a three-piece currently.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah,
and who's with you right
it's
now?
sounding pretty good. Jared Keneally is the drummer, formerly of Jesus Wears Armani. They were a band from around the Seattle area that has not been around since about 2018 now. And then Jonathan Decker, he just stepped in on bass. Ricky, the previous bass player, left. He basically went on tour a couple times, and I think he just wanted to. I think he figured out this is just something he doesn't want to do. It's just kind of like he was like, I hate doing this. I hate playing shows. I hate dragging all my equipment all over the place. I hate doing this, and that's kind of what he told me. He's like, I love you guys. I love this band. I like the music a lot. I really believe that it's going to do something. He's just like, I feel like I'm just dragging you guys back. And he's like, I'll play the shows that are left, and farewell. And that's all that went on there. And then it's like pretty much immediately I had an inbox with people who wanted to play bass, which is so unheard of. I was just like, what? So I had all these people who wanted to play bass, and Jonathan, he's like a real deal bass player. Not like no offense to metal bass players. There's some awesome ones out there like Beyond Creation, and definitely there's, you know what I mean? There's like Evan Brewer. He's been in a bunch of stuff. There's good bass players out, but for the most part, let's be fair and say that most of them are failed guitar players. You know what I mean? And or guitar players that the band didn't need another guitar player and they wanted to be in the band. That's just kind of how that works. And I would say Ricky was more on par with like he was a guitar player who played bass. Still good and did a good job and all sounded solid, and he always did a fantastic job. But the difference when having someone who's like really into the bass, it's been different. It's been like and the other thing is he's really knowledgeable about music, and I'm not used to that. Like I couldn't just say to any other band members I've ever had, to the bass player, I'm playing an F sharp major 7 here, so just find an F sharp somewhere in that. I couldn't just do that. I would have to go, this is the fret it is, this is the string it is, and here's the other 3 places that it is. That's not a problem. I don't mind doing that. Just these are the places that you could play. I don't have to do that. I just say this is a G. I'm playing a G major right here, G minor, or this is, you know what I mean? It's like a G add 9 or something.
Yeah.
And he'll go, oh, okay. So he already knows the things he could do. And then we just kind of jam on that and then find the place where he can fit in. That's been a huge thing on the recordings that are coming up. He's going to be on them. I'm pretty sure he wants to be. So we're going to like put his bass on all of it, but definitely these recording sessions and the practices have been a lot of kind of that stuff that I've never got to do before in this band, where I'm not just playing the bass on it and then going, this is the part I wrote.
Right.
I'm like, okay, this is what I'm playing. Here's your chance to do something cool that you do that makes it something that is unique to you and makes the song a little different. Now, that being said, if it gets way out of bounds, I'm never uncomfortable going, hey, I don't like that. You know what I mean? Like, you're doing way too much here or something, or you're playing something weird here. I don't like it. But for the most part, like he's like spot on, and his timing is fantastic. And the live show, the only show we played with him was at Tony V's, and it was just like, whoa. And he's like jumping off the riser, you know what I mean? And like jumping around and doing stuff. And like, we're just used to someone being a big dude who's like 6'4", who's got his foot up on the monitor, kind of doing his thing. Jonathan's like a little dude. I don't know how high he is, but I'm 6'1", 6'2" on a good day. Jared's like 6'7".
Holy shit.
And yeah, so like John, I think he's like 5'9", 5'10", something like that. So like he's small compared to us, but he's just like he's bouncing around and energetic, and I'm just excited to have him in the band. And
Yeah.
so yeah, those are the dudes that are in the band right now, and it's going really good, and the practices have been super fun. So I think it's going to bring that energy live too, which as a performer to me, it's something I look forward to, is like that I think was missing in the last probably 5 Draemora shows or 6 Draemora shows that were noticeable, that the vibe was different. You know what I mean? And it wasn't as like energetic as it was in the beginning. And now that John's back, it's like it's kind of, or in the band, it's kind of like breathing that new vibe back in. I never lost it, dude. Like I love playing music. Like anytime I get to do it, I lose myself in it. But I understand how you could fall out of love with it, you know what I mean? Or something's happened in your personal life and you're just like, dude, this isn't as important to me as it was.
Yeah,
But
for
yeah, I
sure.
think John's kind of that way too. It's like he just loses himself, and that's what we're looking for. That's the kind of people I want to surround myself with. People who play music and it just captures them, and they get lost and they have fun, and you know what I mean? So hopefully the next shows are even better than they've ever been,
Yeah. And do you have any shows on the calendar right now?
We're going to play Plaid Pig this Saturday.
Oh shit. Okay.
But this won't come out probably before then. But then we're getting another show. I think it's on the 27th of July, and
Okay.
it's going to be for my buddy Germ. But then I think, like I said, the next thing that we do, I think it's going to be a showcase show. Hopefully it's like September. So we're going to take a month off, and I always do this whenever I do a showcase because I want like to not play any shows, come up with a new set, come up with something new, make it really as special as I can make it on my end of the deal, solidify like 2 other really good bands who are doing sort of the same thing, maybe a 4th band, probably not, and then make it special, so I can get a good draw for one for the people who own the place, whoever it is, and I'm not playing a bunch of shows before then, but also to just make it a special event. You know what I mean? To make it really special, advertise it a lot, make sure everyone knows that it's a special thing. It's not a normal show. It's going to be different. And I only want to do that a couple times a year. So sometimes, I just don't want it to fall on its face because we're playing 4 shows that month and then we're going to play a showcase. I want it to be like a month and a half or
Yeah.
something, maybe September, October, maybe October. We get a place. We really put all of our effort into advertising it, getting it out there, and then everyone gets to benefit from that. Who wants to go to an empty show? So you know what I mean. But that's the plan. After this month, I think we take a month and a half off, or who knows, dude? I don't know. That could change. I think the other plan is to play Oregon, play Idaho, play Montana,
Yeah.
play Spokane, play California. We have some homies down in San Diego, so there won't be any places here, but so we don't wear out this market. But if we do get shows, they're probably going to be out of state. If we're I just don't want to trample on anything that we do here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it sounds like you've got some cool shit in the works, and definitely some plans in your head. You've got a roadmap of kind of where you want to be, which I think puts you pretty far ahead of a lot of people out on the scene right now that are just day by day in it and hoping something fucking falls into their lap.
It's a benefit of being old, Mike.
Oh
You start to
man.
plan stuff out. Okay?
Oh, I know. I've only got 2 weeks left to live, so I got to get this
Yeah,
show
me
put
too.
out. So awesome. Well, hey, anything else that you want to make sure we cover before I let you get back to your day here?
No, man. Thank you so much for having me and having a squirrely, weird conversation. Enjoyed it, and yeah, man. Just thank you for having me, and thank you anybody who's listening. Go check out Six Sad World. Last Words, and I haven't done almost any promotion for that song, and not on purpose, but we just kind of didn't have a budget to really push it as hard as a record label would or something. People are listening to it, and I can see the data.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I can see when something's doing well and when it's not. And Last Word's only been up for like a month or two, and it's hitting 1,000 plays.
Yeah.
Most of those plays are from Seattle and Vancouver, BC, and up right above us in like Alberta and those places like in Canada. and then there's some in California and stuff. But I know it's all coming from right around here. So thank you to everyone who's listening to that and showing other people that stuff. But yeah, I'd like to see both those songs over 1,000 and not that less than 1,000 mark.
We'll help get you there for sure.
Yeah, spin it like 7 times today. You know
where is the best place to check out Draemora's music right now?
Any place you can stream music is fine. The Spotify one, the most people have it. But yeah, it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. It's even on YouTube Music if you have YouTube Music. I know a lot of people are moving to that. It's even on Napster. So just that. Wherever you listen to music is fine. Just play it. I'm only joking about the streams thing, but it is funny that they try to pit us all against each other and feed that thing by making it embarrassing to not have 1,000 streams on something. You know?
Get Terry his 30-cent royalty check too.
Come on, man.
That'll help go towards the new Rev rig.
I need some new guitar picks. I'm fucking running out here. Okay.
Awesome, and make sure you follow Draemora on the Book of Faces and on the Instagrams, all the social media platforms. Terry does some really awesome, cool guitar clips and amp rundowns and all that kind of cool shit to kind of keep you engaged. Some awesome, song breakdowns from his solos that he plays, and it's just a really, really, really cool amount of content to kind of whet your appetite between the Draemora releases. So, Terry, thank you so much for supporting the scene as well, for hanging out with me on Misery Point Radio, for reaching out, and don't forget to send me all your songs as they come out, and we'll pimp the shit out of it and make sure that we saturate the airwaves for you.
Fantastic, man. Thank you so much.
All right, brother.